Welcome to the Computer Repair Podcast, episode number 321. Why attend conferences? This is our live show where we discuss the ins and outs of running your computer repair business. Our show today is brought to you by Instant House Call, remote support that is easy for you and your customers to use. This is a must-have tool with features like on-demand for your break-fix customers and unattended for managed services. You can do automatic repairs with the auto repair built-in software, and it will save you time and money when you're supporting your customers. Check it out for a free trial at instanthousecall.com. Use the offer code PODNUTS. And by BusyBench, the all-in-one management tool, simplifying IT for computer repair business with a clean and simple interface. Spend more time running your business instead of learning your management software. For a free 14-day trial, just go to busybench.com, use the offer code PODNUTS for 30% off the life of your account. And also by Untangle Next Generation Firewall. Best solution for bringing powerful network security to your clients in an easy to manage and cost-effective package. Untangle's partnership program helps repair shops in cybersecurity to their services and get up and running quickly. Get started today at untangle.com/podnuts. Let me introduce the co-hosts. We have John Dubinsky from the Maven Group. John, how you doing?
Everything is awesome, as Brad Torrey says.
And Paco Lebron from ProdigyTeks. Paco, how you doing?
Better than I deserve.
Awesome. Okay, so let's go ahead. And John, I'm going to kick it off to you since you weren't here last week and you got the tips or story for this week.
All right. After a week off, I got a small little list here. A couple of tips, a couple little bits of information. First one up is in the secret Facebook group, CRP Facebook group. A lot of talk about Ubiquity. So I'm just tossing the link out for the Reddit thread on Ubiquity. If you guys are Ubiquity guys or you're thinking, or gals, and you're thinking about jumping on the Ubiquity bandwagon, a lot of cool information, and a lot of guys show their setups on there too. So I thought that was pretty cool. So I'll put that in the show notes, obviously. Number two, a little Sophos article. I don't know if this is just link bait or not. I haven't read the full article yet, but it's 7 uncomfortable truths of endpoint security. So I'm going to put a link in the show notes. You got to go through the whole, give them your email address and phone number thing, but Sophos is pretty solid, so I don't think you'll run into any trouble. That looks like an interesting article. Another one on the, maybe it's just a link bait topic, but the article is pretty interesting. Hackers target Office 365 business accounts. I mean, that's kind of a duh. But what Barracuda Research, or Barracuda, you know, our favorite, our firewall backup, and now RMM vendor, has come up with is they've found a huge surge in account takeover attempts on Office 365 accounts. So maybe, if nothing else, that might be a nice little marketing piece you could send your customers to say, hey, watch out for that extra phishing that might be happening. Take it or leave it, but the link is in the chat and the show notes. Next is a personal tip. I use a company here in Grand Rapids, Michigan called Service Express. And they do a lot of things, but what I use them for is my server warranties. I don't even extend the Dell server. So if I buy a brand new server, I get the base warranty that comes on that box, which is usually about a year. You can do some configuration there. But if you've got a Dell server, an HP server, Server Express, the pricing is less, they have national coverage, and the service is outstanding. So check them out. If you have any questions, poke me in the group, or you can send me an email, and I'd be happy to help out, or even send you an email address to my salesperson. And last but not least, this is something that I'm finding more in my business as, I don't know, as users get more aggressive to try to get more out of IT, shadow IT is happening more and more. So, you know, I'm having to lock more and more down. So why shadow IT is the next looming cybersecurity threat, maybe a little bit link bait there with that. But the article is pretty cool. It gives you some great ideas on what could be happening on your networks and why you need a network tool or some sort of tool to see what's happening and what devices are getting connected to your network to sort of keep some sort of control of that. And that would be it for this week.
Great. Those are great as usual, John. Now, as far as the shadow IT, so what you mean by that is basically somebody in the shop there is basically going through and thinking they know IT and they're kind of doing some IT in the background so they don't have to call you and bother you. Is that what it is?
I agree. Great. That's right. Not everybody might know what shadow IT is. So the universal, or sort of the most obvious thing, or what you hear most of the time is, hey, I don't have wireless in this area, so I went out and I bought my little Linksys router, and now I plugged it into the network, and now what has happened? Either I'm getting some sort of weird double natting, or I now have 2 DHCP servers on the network, or just strange things like that. So somebody tried to solve the problem without calling the IT person to come out and resolve that issue. But it can also be a little bit more nefarious than that, where even management might do it, where management might sign up for a new online service that you might not know about, which could totally compromise their compliance or something to that effect. Or shadow IT can be a third-party vendor. One of my favorite stories is probably one of my oldest and longest customers got a new security system, alarm and door locks at their location, and I got the call Monday morning that they couldn't get in the building. And, the call kind of went like, hey, John, and Allison who called me and said, hey, we can't get in the building. And I'm kind of like, well, that's weird, but I am the glorified janitor with a ton of keys. So I said, well, do you need me to run the key? And she says, no, it's the new locks. And I'm like, what are you talking about? So long story short, the installers put their equipment on the exact same IP address as the copy machine, and everything worked Friday, but it didn't work Monday. So alarm installers are as bad as copy machine installers. And the thing that I try to ask all my clients, and I think all of us do, down on our knees and begging, is, hey, just tell us what's happening. Can you just shoot me an email, or at least consider IT, since everything's plugging into it now? And that still hasn't happened, but that's another diatribe for another day.
Isn't that the number one thing that everybody wants, not only in their personal lives but in their business lives too, is that communication?
Well, I think what's happening, or we're really the big change, is we've never done this before in IT, and American business isn't even really built like that, where you slow down, you pump the brakes just for a minute, and you take all the considerations into effect. Even if it's something, we're getting an alarm system. Who needs to know? What is it plugging into? What systems are it touching? Who's this going to affect? A lot of other cultures spend a lot more time with long-term planning and all that than the Western cultures do. So, again, so more and more as phone systems, alarm systems, the fire systems, just about everything. And now I have a new building being built for a client where the LED lighting is now plugged into my network, so they can control the lighting from the network. So that's here it is, version 0.1 as well. So we'll see how that goes.
Scary
But
time.
what the approach I'm taking is, every time I see a customer, I get to interact with the owner of the business. I'm saying, anything new happening? I say to them, anything you're thinking about? No matter what happens, just poke me, just send me an email, just let me know. Thanks. That sort of thing.
That's cool. All right, Paco, what do you got for us?
In the event that I sideline everyone, the Wi-Fi is so poor in this apartment. I actually just recently moved in the middle of the week, so my old gear is actually in my old apartment across the hall. So that's my disclaimer for this. But no, I got a good story, which also is about just technological failures. Is value your RMM and make sure it's on your own internal equipment. I actually had my Dell Precision probably for the last 6 years or so, and just was working on it. And all of a sudden, I have Synchro tied into my Slack channel. And all of a sudden, I got an RMM alert that one of my drives failed on my system. I was like, oh, that's weird. All of a sudden, my system powers off, like completely shuts down. There's no BSOD, there's just powers off. I was like, huh, that's weird. Yeah, long story short, lost 2 drives on that system and gave me an excuse to upgrade to a ThinkStation P700. So went ahead and did that whole process. But the biggest piece,
Paco, those of us in the Dell world would not consider that an upgrade, just so you know, but keep going.
Yeah. So so I was happy because I'm a reseller of Lenovo. So I'm actually now in my product line. So it worked out really well. And so far everything's been smooth, but it's just the pain of having to put everything back together like you had it. And then you really don't want to go to the image backup sometimes, because if it's a month old, because I tried to do mine every 30 days, and it was one of those where I just didn't really want to do all that, so I just did it from scratch. So long story short, value your RMM, put it on your internal gear, and might save you a couple times.
Very good. And my quick story for this week is I ordered some new network equipment for the office, my office. Not because anything's broken, but for the first time in my life, I'm being proactive as we are supposed to be with our managed services. And I am putting in a brand new modem. I got another Eris modem, whatever the latest, greatest, 32 by 8, whatever it is. Anyways, it's at 8900 or something like that, or 8200. Anyways, I'm
Don't make it
replacing.
easy for me to do show notes or anything.
Yeah,
That's okay.
I'll put it in there if you don't get it. But I ordered it from Amazon. It's an expensive modem, but you can have a modem for 4 or 5 years and it'll be just fine. I don't want to let my other one fail, so I'm just going to change it over. And then I'm moving from the older Arachnus 300 series to the Arachnus 300 or 310 series in both the router and the I'm doing a full managed switch with 16 ports. What I'm trying to do is cut down all the different switches and things I have in the office and just going to one switch where I can work with the management within that, between that and the router inside my office, do some VLANing and all that kind of stuff. And hopefully the stuff I've learned from John, I'll be able to duplicate on there fairly easily since we learned some good lessons there. So that is what I'm going to do. And it should be here this week. I already got the modem today, and I'll switch that over sometime during the week when I have a little bit of downtime, which seems like never. But I'll do that. And then hopefully Saturday, I think I will have the day off. And since it's Mother's Day on Sunday, I won't have a show. So giving everybody a heads up on that. Go take care of your significant others and mothers and all that kind of good stuff, or just go and rest and relax for the day. But I'm going to take Saturday and hopefully be able to put that stuff in, which I've got to rewire the office, so that'll be a lot of fun. But something new, and then hopefully I can report back on that and see exactly how easy it was to switch my own network over, which it should be fairly simple, but we'll see. I'm sure I'll have some stories afterwards. Okay, let's take a quick break and we'll get into our main topic. TechCon Unplugged, bringing the IT community together. That's what we want to do. Join like-minded business owners for a weekend packed with resources to help your IT business thrive. Hear from experts and get one-on-one time with peers facing the same challenges you are in your business. Walk away with concrete action items to take your business to the next level. It is September 20th through the 22nd, 2019 in Grand Rapids, Michigan. Tickets are $199. That covers all your food for Friday, Saturday, and part of Sunday before you leave and head on back home. Just a heads up, I probably will be getting in there Thursday, so a little bit ahead of time, and hanging out through Sunday evening. So if people want to stay after the conference, I should be there, and then I will head home early Monday morning. Go to techconunplugged.com. You can get all your information there. We've got a great topics and agenda set up, and we're going to be plugging in some new things as we keep going along. So we're excited about where this is going and what we're doing, and we're bringing the vendors along with us to be a help in the community, along with your peers that do this day in and day out. You're going to hear from people that actually do this on a regular basis still today. As a matter of fact, when they come to the conference, they'll probably be dealing with things from their own customers that they'll be able to talk about over that weekend and go, yeah, I had to do this and I had to do that. And so these are the men and women in the trenches doing what we do every day. And that's who we want to learn from. And again, go to techconunplugged.com, get your tickets, get your hotel room. Can't get the hotel any cheaper. It's $102 a night. That's super cheap, right next to the airport. If you're driving in, it's free parking. There's free shuttle to get you from the airport to the hotel. And if not, we'll get you there. All right, let's go into our main topic. Today, we want to talk about why should you take your time in good, hard-earned money and go to a conference, especially for people that are just starting out in this business and trying to figure out what things that they want to do to help them grow in their business. Because let's face it, I'm sure we'll hear some stories from these gentlemen, but starting way a long time ago, there's a lot of things and resources that we have at our fingertips today that we didn't have way back when. And so it's getting a fair bit easier, except that it's getting a fair bit harder because you hear a lot of different opinions online, and you really need to talk to somebody that's actually doing this on a regular basis and getting that information. So that's one of the things that we look for, just kind of like what we talked about before. So, John, I'm gonna kick it off to you, and I want you to give us your perspective on why should you take your time and hard-earned money and attend a conference.
Well, there's a lot of reasons, and maybe what I'll do is I have a list about 5 or 6, and maybe I'll comment on one, and then Paco can comment on that too, and we'll just go down the list. First of all, it comes down to a conference. Obviously, can present an expense depending on the conference that you're attending. It can be anywhere from free if you sign up early, or low cost like TechCon Unplugged, or conferences can be above $1,000, $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, depending on what you're going to. And you have to justify that value, and then you also have to equate in that time away from your business. Not that you're going somewhere to get value, but what's the value you're trading? If you're solopreneur, that could be much more of a cost item than if you have techs that are going to continue your business running in the background while you go learn. But the first opportunity that I would say you have at a conference, you do your research, you find out who's presenting, you can look at the agenda, maybe take a look at what sponsors are available. But let's just assume that you find a conference that you think you're going to enjoy based on what you can find out about that conference. So your first obvious opportunity is networking. Meet people like you. Maybe try to fulfill a need in your business through that networking. I mean, last week's show would be a great opportunity, a great example of that. He's reaching out for other custom builders. He's maybe reaching out where to find new clients. That's a great thing to do at a conference, especially if you're honing that conference to fulfill that need. The other thing is, you might just network with people like you to realize, well, the same struggles, challenges, problems, successes that you are having, everybody else is having too. Maybe with a little bit of a twist, maybe a little bit something else, but it's all that networking. And even if it's just a hello, a handshake, an introduction, and then trading business cards, you never might know when you need that service somewhere. So you can put that in your database, your CRM system, your contact folder, or toss it in a drawer. But when you need that, it's nice to have it, and then at least you can say, well, we've shaken hands and we know each other. Paco, you got anything to add to networking opportunities?
I mean, exactly like you said, it's the relevance of having the like-minded people that are there, and it's really on, no matter what conference you go to, I think 9 out of times out of 10, you always say, or I hear from our community and other attendees, the biggest takeaways, the biggest benefits from attending those conferences have always been that table of other techs that you were with. It's always been talking to whoever it was in the lobby. Although the content, depending on what the conference is there, may be great, I always hear that it's always, man, so and so from Florida went ahead and put me on the right path on getting my pricing structure properly because he said it, he got it going. Or the one person that said, hey, I actually model my whole offerings in this way and have been able to, make X amount of money or sold it to X amount of many customers. And that starts a snowball effect of, taking inventory and motivating. And that's really the biggest thing is, with a lot of these conferences and we're going to throw a TechCon here every so often, it's that chance of being able to be inspired. So it's not so much of what's happening at the conference, but what you're going to take with you moving forward and you going home and actually executing and making those action items going by. So like perfect example, I was just at Channel Pro and there was a lot of great content there, but I was sitting next to one of the techs. I forgot the gentleman's name. It was Jeff. I want to say it was Norton, but we were getting into talking about like what's really next gen AV. Like really explain to me like why did you switch from I forgot who he had before, but he switched to Cylance, and he's been with Cylance for 2 years. Why does that make sense? Why did you think that that was a good offering? And we had a great conversation as to why did that make sense for his business, and how he was able to really have more comfortability in his stack, comfortability on his network, and comfortability on his billing, so that he can improve his profits, being able to move it from there. And that's all what the game is about, right? Is how comfortable are you about your own skill set, and you're going to be around a lot of great people networking to understand where you feel on your own self of where you stand, and where you can go to get to that quote unquote next level in your mind.
And I want to add on to that, just from the aspect that you said you had a conversation with somebody and that you were sitting at a table with other techs. And not to pick on anybody, but a lot of time in our industry, nerds, fellow nerds like us, have a really hard time communicating. And I would suggest that if you're going to try to own your own business and move out on your own and you aren't comfortable, I mean, you could still be uncomfortable to this day. I mean, I've been doing this a long time, but if you're uncomfortable communicating with other people or making that cold call first impression or doing something like that, a conference is a great place to force yourself to be in front of strangers and start a conversation. Again, I'll go back to TechCon, but you can do this with any conference, even Channel Pro. We talk about that on this conference too. Send an email, or if you're in the CRP group or something, try to hook up and say, hey, are you going? Find even if you don't know them, we'll just call them a mutual friend, so that you have a warm contact when you show up, and literally ask that person, like if you see me at TechCon, literally ask that person and say, hey, can you introduce me to some people? Or, find somebody or find the contact, and reach out to somebody that's on the webpage that might be the sales associate for the conference and say, hey, look, this is what I'm doing. I'm coming. I'm paid. I'm in. Hey, can you introduce me to this vendor, or can you do something for me? Force yourself out of your comfort zone so that you get more value. And then you're also training yourself for your business and your life to break that cold call and break that. Go ahead, Paco.
Yeah, no, I was just gonna say, like, that those are great points, because you can start small, right? You can start with the tech cons, the channel pros, and build your way up to maybe, going into maybe the bigger conferences that you kind of might been intimidated to go to, like the channel cons, the Datto cons, the Spice Works of the worlds. And you could build your network, and then you can go with friends. Would I have found myself going to DattoCon in a couple years before? No, but I think I think it's coming up in June, and I may end up going to ASCII and San Diego, going to DattoCon, and just because now I will be in front of a more plethora of technicians that may in IT business owners with the same like-mindedness of what I want to do. And then on the other hand, it could be that it'll expose me to other vendors that I may not be able to see on a smaller scale. But it's always, you go to your comfortability, and that's what's great about networking, because you can go with a crew. You can go with your acquaintances, you can go with your group. And in our industry, we always know um those guys that have their kind of crew per se, that kind of flock together. And that's what's a great opportunity, is to really build that, and I'm going to say it, brotherhood per se, on being on the commonalities of what you love to do, and moving forward from there.
And let me follow this up by saying that if you are a seasoned veteran in this industry and this is what you've been doing for a long time, it is not just, you should not go to a conference and stick with the same people over and over again. You should get out there and look for the people that might be standing off to the side, might look a little bit uncomfortable. Go up and introduce yourself to them with no strings attached, just to get to know somebody and to help somebody out. Because a lot of us probably wish we would have had somebody way back in the beginning that would have come alongside of us and just said, hi, how you doing? Hey, what do you do in your business? Just start that conversation. I feel it's an obligation in life in general. If you learn something, it is an obligation to pass it on to somebody else. If you're not doing that, there's
Shame on
something.
you is
Yeah,
what it is.
there's something about your humanity that I don't quite understand. Let's
Yeah,
put it
I
that
mean,
way.
I mean, and that's a huge thing too. It's the phrase that I always hear, and it's a quote that I've always stuck with for many years, is that it's your obligation, if you ever make it onto the top, to send the elevator back down. And that's just something that is just an obligation, as you said. That's what you need to do. And if you don't, then, like you said, you're just not a contributing individual to society.
Exactly. You said it so much nicer than I did. Uh, Hey, John, before we continue on with the second part, let's take another quick break and then
Hang on 1 second. Let me add one more thing. Just
Okay.
tying into networking opportunities and talking to people. The other thing you can learn is how to talk to vendors as well. Because a lot of times people go up and you go to the vendor table and you say, "Hi, I'm Bob. I'm from ABC Computers. What do you got?" And they're like, "Well, they hand you a slick." And you say, "Hey, cool, thanks. You've taken all this money. You've gone to a conference. You're standing in front of a vendor contact. Do not make their job that easy. You need to reach over to the table and say, "Hey, look, saw your webpage. I'm interested. Have a plan. How do I implement this? How much does your product cost? How do I get started? How many other vendors are using your product? How long have you been in business?" Have questions ready to drill the vendor. All right. And if they just send poor salespeople, make sure that you tell them that too, when you start your relationship, if you're going to want to move through that. I mean, your customers expect more out of you than that. Expect more out of your vendors. Don't just get a slick because you could have printed that from the web page, right? So you have a human in front of you, communicate, pull information, get what you need to provide that value.
One other thing I'll key off of John on that vendor conversation is that, and that's the biggest point, is to establish that relationship. Because when you standardize your stack, when you standardize your relationships, when you're able to say you have a partner, not a vendor, it goes so much more further. And it's one of those where, you can talk to a rep or a vendor and you have such a great relationship with, and they basically are able to help you connect with other people or other events or other vendors, or they have these dinners, lunch and learns that they say, "Hey, you know what, I know you're on the product, but you guys are great, why don't you come down to Ruth Chris and get a steak, see what we have to talk to," and that's your account managers reaching out to you to tell you about that. It's not you finding out the other way. So it's one of those where it allows you to really build that relationship, and you never know where that relationship is going to take you.
Very well said. All right, let's take a quick break. Our show today is brought to you by a Busy Bench. Remember when running your business was simple? Busy Bench sure does. Wouldn't it be nice to quickly create a repair ticket, generate an invoice with a single click, and manage thousands of customers completely free of charge? Busy Bench thinks you will enjoy adding an unlimited number of customers, invoices, estimates, and inventory items so much you might forget that we have paid features too. But don't worry, when your business grows and you need things like SLA alerts, payment processing, and recurring subscriptions, Busy Bench will be with you every step of the way. Turn a ticket into an invoice with a single click. If you added inventory items to a ticket, they will be added to the invoice as well. The new invoicing module allows you to track when a customer opens an invoice and determines when it is viewed. Additionally, customers can put that same invoice online. Manage your assets with predefined metrics and customization options. Easily track everything from customer serial numbers to login passwords and device details from a single location. Receive daily digests recapping all of your activities, such as tickets created, invoices generated, and payments received. Go to busybench.com and start your free account today. When you decide to upgrade, use the offer code PODNUTS for 30% off the life of your account. All right, John, item number 2.
I'm going to unmute myself first, and then I'm going to combine the next 3 items. All right, so I group these as find answers to your pain points, one-stop shop for products and services, and then training. So if we jump on the bandwagon, in past Channel Pros, I really like the Channel Pro. At the beginning of the conference, they had a day-long SolarWinds training. So if you were a SolarWinds RMM, well, you can combine some training with your conference time, which is even, which should add even more value to that conference. And then a lot of the times, maybe Datto is a perfect example. If you're a Datto guy and you're using Datto RMM and Datto Backup and, formerly OpenMesh, all their products, boy, I mean, if you're a Datto person, Datto would be the conference to go to get that. So, you want to find answers to your pain points. Maybe you've got an AV you really don't like, so you go to you're looking for a conference that maybe 4 or 5 different AV vendors are there. I remember at CompTIA, we had a bunch of different AV vendors. So, make your list, and then you can go see all those AV vendors, actually talk to somebody, and you're right in front of them. And if you're lucky, maybe they have a seminar, they'll give you a demo and all that kind of good things while you're there. Huge value to do that versus trying to set up phone conversations or a WebEx or a GoToMeeting or something like with that. The other thing is maybe you need to make a change in your stack. Maybe you want to switch from Arachnus Wi-Fi to Ubiquiti Wi-Fi, or from Ubiquiti stuff to Cisco stuff. Or you're at least making that consideration. Your one-stop shop for products would be find a conference where Cisco or what the vendor you're looking for is there, and they're going to have their product line there so that you can actually put your hands on it. And then a lot of times, and I think Arachnus falls into this category, we stumbled on them, Snap AV. We were at CompTIA, and somebody handed Jeff was it a watt box or a surge protector?
Yep.
Yeah, handed you a watt box, and all of a sudden we said, well, this is pretty cool. What else do you have? So, that's kind of the beauty of, wrapping up your training. It's a one-stop shop for a lot of products. If there's, check out the vendor list that's at your conference. And then, find answers to the pain points. Make a consideration or a concerted effort to maybe sit down and say, well, what am I struggling with? Do I need third-party support because I'm a solo tech? Well, find who's doing that. There's a lot of distributors that do that. There's a lot of third-party companies, and they're at conferences. Go talk to somebody that way if you're not getting the information you need. So, that's what I would suggest is find answers to pain points, one-stop shop for a bunch of products and services, and then, a lot of the times focus on training. Paco, you got anything? I missed anything in that group?
No, I think the biggest piece is that, keeping your eyes open. You want to make sure that you look at what's the opportunities are there, try out what you have there, and really not waste the opportunity of being able to look to see what's available that's in that conference, whether it's a vendor, whether it's a sponsor that's sponsoring a dinner or an event or a training workshop. And really the biggest piece is that you could be so standardized on your stack, but it's like that one drawing that I always see is that where there's a guy that has a wheel. What is it? Is it or a catapult or a club or something like that? And there's a guy it's a sales guy knocking on his door with a machine gun.
No, yeah, that's my one. It's a king inside of a tent, and he's yelling at his I don't know what you call him, his assistants, and saying, I don't have time for that. We've got a war to fight. And they're handed out with their swords and shields, and the salesperson's a machine gun salesman.
There you go.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, good one.
So it's one of those where, like, you don't know who you're going to find or who you're going to encounter that will just exceed what you need to do efficiency wise or cost wise or just profit wise. Always make sure that you have the opportunity to keep an open mind, look at what's there, and yeah, maybe something maybe a little bit more of an investment up front, but the payoff may be big.
And Jeff, if I can really quick, we had a question in the chat. What is a watt box? So I just wanted to toss that in there. The watt box does a lot of cool things, but really the two things it'll allow you, let's say, it'll allow you to reboot a device that's plugged into a watt box. Let's say your server is frozen. You could cycle the power with the watt box. Or the other thing is you can program a watt box to like reboot your router if the gateway goes down. Like if the watt box can't see the gateway, it knows the equipment's down, so it can reboot your cable modem or reboot your router automatically. Let's say automatically.
I like that.
Yes. So and I put a link in the show note or in the chat, and I will put it in the show notes to the Wattbox page.
Very cool. Yeah, as far as I don't really have anything to add. These guys have really covered that those areas real well. So John, what else do you have for us?
Well, the next thing, and Paco kind of already mentioned it in his initial discussion, was learn of tomorrow's trends. So he's sitting next to somebody, and antivirus came up, and we all need to be running an AV, but a lot of the time, the knock on AV is, well, there's new threats. AV is an essential part of that, but it's just a small piece. What is new? What else is out there? So some of the newer AV products have a lot of different features where they have a lot of more insight into what is happening when there's an infection. A lot of them have features to roll that back. And then a lot of them have a lot more monitoring features where we're just not watching for infectious files. and I'm going to simplify this, we're watching for behavior. And I'm not just talking heuristic behaviors of files. I'm talking about activity on the network, access to different stuff that's never happened before. I'm being very simplistic there, but, the conversation goes on and on and on what some of these newer products do. Rocket Cyber, Silence, Paco, I know you know, and a couple others you'll toss in there. But a good thing about going to a conference is, I say, only thing I know for sure is I don't know everything. He's trying to learn about what you don't know. What's new in VoIP? If you don't know about VoIP, maybe go to a conference with a lot of VoIP providers, or maybe even go to a VoIP focused conference. It's not an IT conference. If you need business help, maybe you're going to a business conference, not an IT based conference, or something like that. The other thing to keep in mind that I didn't really add to my list that just came to my thought, maybe you want to become involved in a conference as a participant, meaning where you have your table because you want to resell to accountants, check your local conferences for that. But I digress. Learn of tomorrow's trends is another thing that you can really get at a conference. And good conferences for that might be like CompTIA or the larger ones where there's a ton of different vendors. And the topics are more broad range, not more hands-on, but here's the future of what's coming. Like I just got an ad for a conference, and they were actually talking about this lighting that's getting installed. They had a lot of the agenda was covering, the lighting control being tied into the network now. So, tomorrow's trends. Paco, I miss anything there?
Yeah, the only thing I just it's more of a what's the word I'm looking for? It's more of a, I guess, disclaimer, I guess is the best word. But one thing to, as you are looking into this, whether maybe you're starting off and you're trying to figure out your offerings and you're trying to get your good standing, is don't think you have to get the shiniest and best thing right up front. There are plenty of solutions that will help build you to where you need to be. And especially right now, if you're looking at to go into a bigger conference, which is why I say start small. But if you go into a bigger conference, there's so many vendors, there's so many opportunities, there's so many shiny things that are going to be waved in front of you. Make sure you lock down what you want to do on a budget wise, and how are you going to maximize the most you're going to get with your tool set. Because what happens a lot, and this is the reason why we're doing TechCon as well, is there are a lot of vendors that will, and these are some that will tell a lot of attendees or participants that, hey, buy this tool that's $3,000 in combined cost and you're going to make it, and bankrupts that IT business, that MSP, that computer repair shop. And that is a constant thing that keeps happening. And that's why we want to make sure that we really understand what's in front of us, have a goal in mind, as John mentioned before, and don't be ashamed that you have a specific budget to adhere by, because you don't need to model yourself next to the next big MSP because you have your own value on what you're bringing to the market.
That brings up a good point too. One of the things that I have often talked about when I started this podcast over 5 years ago, or restarted it back up, I should say, because it had been going since like 2008, some on and off. But when I restarted it back up in 2014, today in April 2014, I looked at all the businesses that had been on a particular show, which was called Podnuts Daily at the time, and there was well over 300 business owners that were on the show at one point from 2008 to 2014 in that time span. And when I contacted every one of those IT businesses, 75% of them were out of business. And part of that is I believe that there's not a whole lot of camaraderie when you're standing out there by yourself and you're not getting any direction, or what I should say is good direction as far as here's some things you can do, start small, grow it as you go, those types of things. Everybody wants to have this super big thing that, they're an overnight success. There's no such thing. Most overnight successes are in the making over a 20-year period. That's just the way it is. You can check any business and they're pretty much all like that. But you want to have a place where you can go and you've got a little bit of getting away from your business, because a lot of times in these businesses, we get bogged down in running around putting out fires all the time, and you're stressed and you're not sure exactly which way to go. And then even though you love being a business owner, you love doing IT, you kind of get to the point where you go, man, I could have a 9 to 5 job and that'll take care of me versus having to go through this headache. Whereas if you had some people that said, yep, I understand where you're at. I was there. Here's what I did to get through that. That will go a long way in making your business that much more, just better to grow with, I guess is the best term. So you got to get that time away from your business because a lot of us will just spend 24/7 in this business all the time, 365 days a year. And you've got to get that time where you can just separate yourself, clear the mind, learn from others, see what's out there, talk to vendors. And that's the other thing John had talked about before. Really, if a vendor comes to a conference, and this is what we're trying to do for ours, is we're only pulling in vendors that we know when you have a conversation with them, they're going to be genuinely interested in you and what you have to say. That's what they're there for. There's a lot of times where you will get salespeople, and if your body language or whatever is not going the right way, they'll go, well, they'll kind of try to move you along. But we want to create relationships. So that's part of what we're trying to put together too. So that's, I just feel it's important for you to get out of your business, get out of your head, get around some other people, and get re-energized like Paco had said earlier. That's really what it comes down to.
It's almost like you pay me to be on the show, Jeff, because my last 2 points are to refuel your passion for what you do, because you're going to be around like-minded people. And really, you should choose a conference where you think you're going to go have a good time.
Yes.
There are conferences more tailored to that than others, but you're going to be around like-minded people that most probably have a large interest in what you're doing. And share a lot of the same interests and all that kind of stuff. And a lot of the times, the conference can just be a great place to have a great time, reinvigorate yourself, and engage with your struggles and your successes with like-minded people, just like you said. So coming away from a conference, just spending time around people that are like you or like-minded is a great way just to feel refocused and re-energized.
Sorry, I didn't hit mute. Yeah, I think the biggest, like what you said, is the opportunity to unplug from your day to day. You being able to stop the daily grind, give yourself the opportunity to work on your business, go to a conference, get remotivated, understand what's going on, talk to all these like-minded business owners, and come back, plug back in. But now, because you've given yourself that break, you've now remotivated yourself to figure out what you want to do. So those 6-month projects that you had set on a Google Keep checklist that you needed to do, now you're motivated. Probably one of the conference nights that you get back to the hotel and you're getting right at it. I forgot where we were at a conference before me and John had went to, and I was, had went to bed and I was up until 3 in the morning rewriting my contracts for automation and synchro. It's one of those where that feeling is something that you can only replicate when you go through something like that, and that is going to a conference, being able to able to unplug from your day to day, being away so that you don't have an excuse to plug back in. And understand what I say. There will be opportunity. There will be times where you may not be able to leave fully during the day to days, but when you have that time to yourself and it's make or break or you're ready to rest, you just get that energy where you really want to start pushing to that extra envelope that you wouldn't get that time necessarily if you were still plugged in on your day to day.
And I think too, you learn so many things of you learn so many things of what other people are doing that it just makes your life where you're like, oh, I wish I would have thought of that. Now you take that idea maybe and put it together with an idea you had, and you're able to make that work for you and your business.
Well, even if it's a smaller conference where you've got 25 people, or the bigger conferences like Spice World or Channel Pro that might have 1,000 attendees, you're going to run into somebody that's got the same struggle in your RMM or the same struggle with your AV, and they might say, hey, well, we ran into that too, but now we do this. And then, I'll pick on Paco a little bit. I think that's what he heard. He heard something about that, and then he got motivated. And it's energizing when you're talking to other people and they're talking about their successes, and they're like, well, this is what we did. We made this one little change in our business, and we changed our RMM or our billing or our PSA, remote monitoring management or professional services automation software, and did this. And man, it's, and then all of a sudden you get, it's hard to explain. It's kind of like this group mentality. You get motivated and you're like, wow, I could make that change too. It's just not that hard. All this low-hanging fruit that all of a sudden starts banging you in the forehead as you're walking through the conference and talking to people, and that just kind of builds momentum and passion for what you're doing.
John, let me ask you a question. When you want to talk about things that pertain to IT, does your wife or daughter care?
No, they don't, but just as a little diatribe, I never talk about them, but you got to remember your wife, your daughter, or the non-IT person in your life is a great person to talk about things when you're trying to bounce an idea off, when you're trying to communicate with people that don't care or know about IT. So if you start talking and all of a sudden they look at you like, Dad, or your wife rolls her eyes and says, hey, look, my program's on TV, I don't want to talk anymore. That's when your messaging is not right. Because you got to remember the people you're dealing with on a day-to-day basis, although they're sitting in front of the endpoints you're servicing, they don't care what you're doing. They really don't. They just want it to work. So, and honestly, do we really care what they're doing either? I mean, in some ways we do, the underlying aspects of what we have to control, manage, and maintain. But, we don't care what they're putting in their customer relationship management or healthcare management or any of that kind of stuff. So, those people are important, but right. No, I mean, you got to come to a conference to talk to people that actually want to talk about what you want to talk about. Absolutely. And even if you're going to geek out a little bit, if you want to talk about that movie or all that kind of stuff. I mean, my wife doesn't want to watch John Wick with me, but I know somebody at TechCon is going to want to talk about John Wick. So, I'm all in.
I mean, I want to go watch John Wick 3.
Oh, man.
So, I adding to the end of this, and I'll have a bunch of links in the show notes for more information. There's a bunch of links. One of the articles has 25 reasons to go to a conference. The other one has 12. So, I mean, there's a lot of individual reasons to go, and it can also be very personal. But, you're making an investment. So before you step off and go to your conference, two things that I would consider. How easy is it to go to the conference? If you're going to Chicago and you're flying in and you're going downtown, do some homework, make sure you've got all your transportation and everything lined up just to make that a less stressful trip for you, because you want to be focused on the information for the conference. To use TechCon as an example here in Grand Rapids, I mean, knock on wood, we got it pretty easy. The city's not that big. The hotel's a couple miles from the airport. I mean, if you have a problem, you can ring one of us. We can come get you in 5 minutes. So that's kind of the beauty of that. But, if you want to go to like Spice World, which is in Austin, Texas, you got to make some plans because there's going to be thousands of people there. You're probably going to be a hotel that might not be at the conference center. So you got to worry about your transportation. Can you walk and all that kind of stuff? And I'm not saying that's bad because I haven't been, but Spice World is on my short list for conferences to go to because I've been told that it is an awesome time filled with great information. So, Paco and I have talked about that a lot. And unfortunately, we actually were going to go this year, but we would have to leave Sunday night from TechCon to go to Spice World, to get to Spice World. So we decided against that. But anyways, do your pre-planning and all that kind of stuff before you step off to the conference. And then the other thing is get in the conference mode. Prepare yourself. I mean, I don't know what you do to get motivated and all that, but you push yourself out of your comfort zone, do your homework, make some lists of the vendors you want to talk to, know where they're going to be if you can, as far as what room. If it's like CompTIA, they might be in the hotel room on a totally different floor away from the conference center with a specific conference room that is clear on the other side of the hotel. So if you can know where that is and get your logistics down before you go, it'll make the conference that much more enjoyable. And last is, I'll circle back to your networking opportunities. A lot of us on, here on PodNuts, we have something called Tech Brothers now too, but really we put that all together in the relationships we have meeting at a conference. So, I mean, you can build a friendship, not only a business opportunity at a conference, so that now you have somebody in the business that when you click the button and it's not working right, or you're late at night at the install and you need some help, you have somebody at least you can text, call, complain, commiserate, or even better yet, share the joy of successes with as you move through your business life cycle. Paco, did I miss anything there?
No, I think you hit everything pretty spot on. I think the ability and the opportunity to have someone that you can reach out to and increasing your network, especially if it's just local and not even local. If you don't have it local and you have them nearby or just to kind of, use them as a soundboard, like you said, it's something that's it's priceless. You can't get that. Before I ended up joining Podnuts, what, back in 2014, whenever that was. So what, going on 5 years?
Yeah, end of
Um,
2014, I think it was.
yeah, so going on 5 years. Before that, all I had was my buddy Andy, and I can only get so far because he's only experienced so much in his experience as an IT professional. I've only experienced so much as an IT professional, but I never really had a network. I didn't have anybody I could reach out to. And being able to hear this, getting involved, going to the conferences, going to the meetups, it gave me the opportunity and the ability to not only get help for myself for a lot of the things that I go through, but I have the opportunity to be able to help those as well. And I get plenty of emails and calls, and I'm happy to do so, in that realm.
So I wanted to just list maybe my 5 or 6 favorite conferences, and I'm not going to talk about any of the ones that really don't exist anymore, like Comdex or any of this kind of stuff. I'm old enough to remember to go in. I mean, Comdex still exists, but it's not really quote unquote computer focused as it was back in the day. But some of the easy ones to go to if you want to get started is I would look at Channel Pro. And the nice thing about Channel Pro is it wanders around the country and really the planet. I think they have a couple overseas, if I'm not mistaken. But it's small, simple, very concise, action-packed in a couple days. Usually have some great vendors and some great content. Michael Siggins and the rest of the team over there put on a great show. It's usually at some place within a hotel, so it's a one-stop shop. And pretty affordable to do. Actually, the conference itself is free, so your travel in the hotel is usually all you have to pay. So Channel Pro, and I'll have links for this, not in the chat, but in the show notes for all of these conferences. And the next one I would add would be the ASCII conferences or the ASCII events, and I'll put a link to their ASCII events page. If you're an ASCII member, you already know about all these. If you're not, you can still get an invite from some vendors to get to an ASCII conference. They're very focused, usually have some excellent vendors and information. Our friend Marvin Bees talked about the one of the lawyers he deals with, had some great information on, tying in the legal aspects to marketing, all of your contracts and all that kind of stuff. So ASCII is very focused on the MSP and what's happening in that realm. Spice World, I have not been on my short list, but just about every vendor I talk to says, why don't you come to Spice World? And then every tech that I talk to, like the guys from Service Express and all that, they all go to Spice World. And they're like, man, Spice World is a riot, and it is just packed with information. So I'm looking forward to that as maybe an escape from my business as well as a learning opportunity. Of course, there's TechCon Unplugged this September in Grand Rapids, Michigan. My comment on that was it's simply the best, and I'll move on from there. Jeff and Paco are doing a fantastic job on that. So, and I'm just great that it's a 5-minute drive for me. So, I mean, how can it be bad? The other one that a couple of us have been to, a few of them, is the CompTIA conferences. Great place to start with a large conference. But don't forget, and I put the link into the webpage, CompTIA has a ton of events. They probably have a local event, everything dealing with, minorities in business to specific business aspects to security to their large annual conference. So, there's a wealth of information at CompTIA, so I would look into that. And then for you Apple consultants, there's a great conference called, and you can even go if you're not an Apple consultant, but, it's called the ACES conference. It's excellent. It's very focused. They have very professional speakers there. It's a little more expensive than some of the other conferences that we've talked about, but it is well worth it. Our friend Brian Best goes to that one as well. I know a couple of guys. I actually went to ACES Conference 1, and I was the only guy there with a PC out of all the attendees, which was pretty cool. But it was great. I learned a ton. And they had very focused seminars there, and the agenda was great. So I'll put that listed in the show notes. And what I would suggest you do is check it out, see if there's one close to you. If you've never been to a conference, maybe find the closest one to you and just jump in, stick your toe in, and see what happens. And from the chat, you can have. Let's talk about the possibility of having a bad conference experience. And the two things that I would tell you there is maybe you just had bad luck. Maybe you got in bed with a bad group. Maybe, I don't know about that. But the other thing I always tell you is focus on yourself. What did you do to make it a bad conference? Did you not prepare before you went? Did you not move yourself out of your comfort zone? Those types of things. Because really, you can go to a conference like CompTIA, walk around, not talk to anybody, not engage with a vendor, leave 3 days later and fly home, and you will have gotten nothing.
Yeah.
So unless you happen to pick up a cool flyer, go ahead, Paco. I'll let you take that one.
I was just gonna say, like, unless you're a serial complainer like myself, I think there was one conference me and you went to, and I think all like the first maybe day and a half, I just was complaining left and right, and it was to the point where I think when we woke up for the morning to go to the first day officially, I got out of bed and it was just literally before my feet hit the floor, I was complaining about something. You're like, are you just gonna do that all day? And it's one of those where you just got to take that self-assessment and like, all right, am I really making it this to be the sucks? Let me make sure, take total, inventory on what's going on. I'm here. I've flown out here. I paid for this ticket. Let's get going. Let's figure out what we're gonna do. And it turned out to be a semi decent good time. Because it was able to take in the good, ignore the bad, and it actually ended up being beneficial.
All right.
Well, and we're getting some. I'm sorry, Jeff. We're getting some comments in the chat too. That people, well, I don't have much time, or I can only afford to go to one conference a year. I mean, I get that. I just missed Channel Pro, which is 2 hours or a 3-hour drive away from me because I was too busy to go. And that's right around the loop. Plus, the really sad part is there were some vendors there I wanted to see, but there's a lot of techs that went to that over in the Chicagoland area that I only get to see at the conferences that I really want to see. Hopefully some of them will drive around here and come to TechCon for us. But, a lot of that stuff is, just running back into those guys that you saw at the conference the previous year that you just, made that relationship, but maybe had that great conversation with, and now you keep up with a little bit, trading emails once in a while or all that kind of stuff. Or they had a similar business to you, so you want to see what changes they made. But I get it. It's a commitment, time and money.
All right. With that, I want you guys to gather up your thoughts because we need to take another break and come up with any lasting thoughts we have before we get on out of here. But our show today is brought to you by Untangle Next Generation Firewall, designed to provide your small to medium business customers with the easiest, most cost-effective solution for network security. Untangle is the fastest way to add cybersecurity to your service offerings. We've taken enterprise-grade security and put it into a platform that makes it easy to get started risk-free. There's no steep learning curve with Untangle. Instead, you'll get a browser-based dashboard that lets you see the status of your managed networks at a glance. You'll enjoy on-the-box reported included at no cost, plus customizable alerts that integrate easily with apps like PagerDuty and VictorOps, making it simple to stay on top of any incidents that do occur. Untangle NG Firewall not only protects your customers with gateway antivirus, spam blocking, and intrusion prevention, but also gives you control over the traffic at the application level with web content filtering, app control, and full SSL inspection. You also get WAN optimization features like balancing, failover, and bandwidth control. Whether you need VPN options or a captive portal for a secure Wi-Fi, Untangle NG Firewall has everything you want in a single solution. With lots of freebies like centralized management with zero touch and provisioning and a cloud threat intelligence scan for a second layer of defense included at no extra cost. There's no better choice than Untangle for getting visibility into and control over network traffic, helping your clients safely connect to the internet for their business critical applications. Visit untangle.com/podnuts today to get a free no obligation trial of NG Firewall and save 15% on any purchases with promo code podnuts. All right, Paco, I'm going to throw it over to you since we just got done listening to John. And any lasting thoughts from you on why somebody should take the time and effort and hard-earned cash to attend a conference to better themselves?
If none else, at least make it an effort to find a conference that's going to help improve your own ability, skill set, and self. Now, you have to make time. That's just what it is. And I understand that there are certain things that might inhibit you from going to a conference, resources, travel arrangements, things like that. There are plenty of great virtual conferences. Now, we've only talked about tech conferences, but there are plenty of great conferences that are local, that are right by the train that you can also walk to, or there are plenty of virtual conferences that you can go to as well. And these are what they're billing as virtual conferences, but they're just super long webinars. There is not an excuse for you not to attend a conference, because time is the only thing, and you have to make time to get time. I know a lot of us always say that we never have time for a lot of the things that we do. And I know that I used to say that quite a bit until I changed that phrase from "I don't have time" to "it's not a priority." And if that sentence does not sound right when you say "I can't do X because it's not a priority," then you need to refigure out what is on your list to reprioritize that. And that's helped out quite a bit. So, again, I understand the no money, the no ability to get to where you want to go. There are plenty of resources that are out there, and there are plenty of people that can connect you to those resources, and they're right in the computer repair secret Facebook group. There are a lot of us that have been through a lot of these conferences. We can start a trend to talk about some of these conferences that may not be specifically tech, but make it an effort to improve yourself. The moment you settle, I believe that is the last day of your business, and you kind of just ride the wave until the next thing just kind of swallows you up.
And before we go to John, since you brought up the secret Facebook group, I'm going to go ahead and throw that in there. If you want to support what we're doing here, go to patreon.com/computer repair podcast. And I want to thank our newest Patreon supporter, and that is William Wallace, who is now included in the group. And we are up to 125 people inside that group, which is awesome. And I want to thank all of our Patreon supporters for your continued support. What that gets you is about $1 a show. We'll get you into the secret Facebook group where you can share with like-minded techs and business owners to help you in your business. And we even have a handful of vendors in there that we've said are okay as long as they behave and don't sell anything.
Yep. And we know who you are too, so don't think we don't know that what you're doing.
It's a safe environment where you can talk about your ideas without being made look like or made fun of or anything like that. And for the people that aren't nice, we have John and Paco have the ability to kick anybody out of the group, including myself.
I don't know. You make fun of me all the time, so I don't know what you're talking about.
Not inside the group, though, John. That's outside the
that's
group.
Right. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay. Sorry.
What stays on the outside of the web is outside. Like when we're traveling in a car, what happens in John's Jeep stays in John's Jeep.
That was such a trip too.
Wow.
Only Obando, Marvin, John, and myself with you will ever know what happened in that car ride. Both back
never
there
again.
Never
so
again.
The guys in the chat and guys and gals in the chat are asking about virtual conferences. I know Channel Pro did a couple. But I don't want, virtual conferences are a great way to maybe get started on a specific topic, but I don't know about you guys. I don't know if I've ever been on a virtual conference where I've gotten anywhere near out of actually taking the time to go to a live conference. I mean, I don't think you compare the two, but like Paco said, the virtual conference is pretty much just a long webinar. It is a great way to maybe quickly ingest a lot of information without having to travel and all that or the expense. But really, that human interaction is really what makes a conference special.
And I think if you have a long-term game in this business, in other words, you're going to be around for a long time. Let's say you're a part-timer just starting out. One of the reasons that we in particular did TechCon Unplugged on the weekend is because we know there are people out there that are working. And so we know it's easier if you want to get a Friday, Saturday, and Sunday off, because most people will have Saturday and Sunday, and maybe they've only got to take a day off versus a lot of other conferences might be during the week when you as a part-timer maybe can't go. So this was kind of the best of both worlds where, hey, you take a Friday off, you get out of Dodge. And here's the thing, if you are a part-timer or funds are tight, think about how you can make money in your business Obviously, there's all kinds of things you gain from this show and others that you listen to in the information that's out there. Figure out what you need to sell or how much business you need to do in order to have enough money to be able to go to a conference and make it a goal. Almost gamify your business to a certain extent so that it will pay for itself. Because here's the other thing. You can not only make your money from the business, but this business thing will be a tax write-off in most places. We're not we're not tax accountants or anything like that. So take everything we say with a grain of salt. But in the state of Michigan, my business expenses and all that are done by my accountant. I give him all the information and he takes that off of what I overtax it. So it works out in the benefit of a business owner.
Jeff, at the conference, we will be staying at a Holiday Inn. So I think you'll probably be, if you've seen the commercials, you're more than adequately rested to make command decisions on any topic since you have stayed. Never mind. You're totally missing. You haven't seen the commercial.
I've seen the commercial.
Oh, God. Okay. Anyways, so I don't know. You just, I don't know if you know how smart you are, but based on the comment you just said, if you're a part-timer and you're trying to figure out how to make more money, going to a conference is a great way to do that. Specifically, if you look at something like TechNut Unplugged, which is maybe focused more on that type of consultant or MSP or VAR or reseller or whatever we're calling them in this particular era, to guys like myself or Marvin B. or, boy, there's a lot of guys that have larger organizations in techs than I do that will be there. But, you know, you can gain that information from talking to other like-minded part-time techs that'll be there, to maybe figuring out maybe one day you're going to quit that job and go full-time. But you can also talk to guys that have been there, that have done that, started as a part-time tech and moved on to a full-time tech, and now run businesses with several technicians. So, you know, that's a great place to start, just with what you said, Jeff.
Well, and let's also reverse that a little bit, because here's the thing, and John says this eloquently all the time. The one thing he knows for sure is he doesn't know everything. And there are things that we learn from the newest techs and business owners that get in this business, because we are so, a lot of times we get so focused on what we do and we're so busy putting out fires that a lot of times it's hard for us to think outside the box. So when somebody is new and fresh and young and they come in and they've got these, they're going to take over the world. They have a lot of great ideas. And a lot of times that can help even a person that's seasoned in this business go, I never really thought about that. That's a good idea. Let me take that information to my business and let me help not only my business, my employees, et cetera, out so that we can move my business forward. Everybody, you know, there's this thing, a rising tide raises all ships. And the reality of that is a rising tide that comes in, it's going to raise all those ships. And that's when you're standing in that area where the water's coming in and all of us are rising up at the same time, it's always a win-win situation. Both people can get a benefit from this particular conference that we're putting on, because it's a great way for the communication to go back and forth. All right. Any other last thoughts before we get on out of here?
Good on this end.
All right. Well, I appreciate you guys coming out. Paco, let people know where they can find you at.
You can find me on when I have the time to record Tech Life on this beautiful network on podnuts.com. You will also be able to find us co-hosting with Matthew Rodella over at the Computer Business Marketing Show. We did take a little bit of a hiatus from doing live Facebook shows, but we will be back with audio formats with some good content, new guests, and hopefully a couple new things coming on the horizon. So we'll keep you all up to date on that.
Thank you. And John, where can people
CRP
find
Group, you? CRP Group, or John at MavenGroup.net.
Awesome.
Hope everybody has a profitable week.
Very cool. Come join us live for the Computer Repair Podcast every Sunday at 4 p.m. Eastern over at podnuts.com/CRP Live. Just to let you know, there is no show next week. It's Mother's Day. Join in on a conversation by hanging out in the chat room. You can send an email to podnuts@podnuts.com, and we will actually read it on the show. Or you can leave a voicemail at 734-335-1000, and we will play that on the show. I want to thank everyone for listening and subscribing to the show. We'll see you next time on the Computer Repair Podcast.